And thanks for watching HBC Channel 25. Dean Beckman along with Donny Nadeau, the Sports Information Director for St. Mary's with the Cardinals Nest. And Donny, we have a lot of sports to talk about. The volleyball season is coming to an end. The Cardinals still a shot at some postseason activities, and also the second student theater production of the season coming up at St. Mary's next weekend. And a little bit later on in the interview segment, we'll talk to Larry Gorrell and Tom Connery about that.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. You know, one of the things we've tried to do now with this show is to get some other things other than sports on, and it'll be fun to have Larry on. I met Larry when I first started at St. Mary's. He was one of the first people that I got to meet and to talk to, and it'll be great to have him on, and I'm going to test his sports knowledge a little bit, so we'll just see how well versed he is in sports. I know he's very talented in the theater department. We'll see how he is in the sports department.
All right, looking forward to that. So we'll get to that a little bit later on, but first we'll talk about the past week in St. Mary's athletics, and we have to start, Donny, with the volleyball team, because the St. Mary's volleyball team got that 6th and final spot in the MIAC playoffs, just like they did last year. Just like they did last year, they had to go on the road, play the number 3 seed in the opening round. Unfortunately, unlike last year, they did not come away winners in that opening round playoff matchup.
Yeah, it's been kind of an emotional roller coaster they've been on for the past week or so. Losing to St. Olaf a week ago, and then knowing that they had to win against Gustavus last Saturday just to have any hopes of getting into the conference tournament. They did that, winning 3-1 at Gustavus, which really is a big win considering it was on the road, and Gustavus is one of those teams that's very good on the road. So they picked up that win, had to go back to St. Olaf on Tuesday night, and really just weren't able to match up with the Oles. St. Olaf winning 3-0. I know Coach Lester was disappointed because the first 2 sets, St. Mary's had pretty sizable leads. They were leading early by a pretty wide margin and just couldn't hang on. And I know that was a little bit disappointing for them in that they just didn't have what it takes to stay with them in the end.
The momentum in volleyball is unlike any other sport. Yes, there are swings in other sports, but it's not like in hockey you're going to go out on a regular occurrence and score 5-6 goals in one period. But in volleyball, you can get 6-7 points back to back to back in a pretty big hurry.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Coach Lester talked about is during the season they never really got themselves to where they were surrendering 4 or 5, 6 points in a serve, and last night that's exactly what happened. Is they got out to those leads. St. Olaf would get on a little bit of a run, and instead of usually as they would side out and get that serve back, St. Olaf just kept on rolling, and I think that was really the difference is they couldn't stop that momentum swing that had happened, and unlike the rest of the season, that was one of the things that they prided themselves on, was not having to deal with any big, huge momentum swings.
Right. Still, though, a 21-9 overall record, so a terrific year for the volleyball team, and there's a chance it's not over yet because the NCAA regional tournament is coming up, and there's still a chance they can get into that.
Absolutely. NCAA will release their tournament field on Monday, and right now St. Mary's is ranked number 5 in the Central Region, so they're sitting in a good spot. It's just a matter of how many teams they're going to take from that region into the NCAA field, and you know, where that'll end up being played. A lot of things, you know, I've been trying to bend Mike's ear in terms of, okay, what are the scenarios, what's going on, and you know, he really doesn't know. He knows that they're right in the middle of that mix. They've got a very good in-region record, and you know, 21-9 is obviously nothing to sneeze at. So they've got a good record going in. It's just a matter of how many teams that the NCAA is going to take from the Central Region. There are 19 at-large bids, and that's for the entire United States. So you know, if they can get lucky and get in, you know, who knows what will happen from there. I know that you know, they've played a lot of very good regional teams all season long, so it's not going to be any problem once they get into the regional tournament to you know, to be able to play with the teams that they're facing. It's just a matter of now they've got to hope that they can get one of those at-large bids.
We were talking last week, even had they not gotten into the MIAC tournament, they still could have gotten into the regional, and so we'll see what happens, and that'll be announced on Monday.
Yeah, it should be. You know, it's one of those things that'll be fun if we can talk, you know, in the weeks coming up about a team making it to the NCAA regional. But I know that, you know, Mike's very happy with the way that they played this year, and you know, like I said, to finish 21-9, that's the most wins St. Mary's has had since 2004. So it's been quite a while since we've had a team that's gotten 21 wins, and that's something to be very proud of. unfortunately, when you lose a match like they did against St. Olaf and it's in the conference tournament and they had hopes of moving on, getting to that semis and maybe even the championship, right now it probably is pretty painful, but I think even if they don't get a bid, they can look back on the season as being very much of a success.
Right. Same thing too, Donnie, with women's soccer. Last year, 5-12-1 overall, a disappointing season. That was Eric Zimmerman's first year as head coach. Now in his second, they finish above 500 on the season, even despite a 1-0 loss in their season finale.
Yeah, you know, it really is the same thing. I know Coach Zimmerman doesn't need to wait a while to look back on this season and feel good, because you're right. They were 5-12-1 last year, but more importantly, they were 0-11 in the conference. And this year they finished conference play 3-7-1. So you know, that's a huge jump up from where they were last year. And as we've always talked on this show, you know, the MIAC is such a tough conference in every sport, and for them to go from 0-11 to 3-7-1 is a pretty big jump. And I know that, you know, he's real happy with that, and he feels good about you know, about where they're at. And obviously, you know, there were a lot of games that they could have, should have. You look at McAllister, you look at St. Ben's, both losses in overtime. You look at the St. Thomas game, a nationally ranked team, and they lose in the 79th minute. They lose 1-0. So there were a lot of games that easily could have gone their way that didn't, and all of a sudden that 9-8-1 could be, you know, could be 12-5. So you know, Coach Zimmerman's feeling good about where they're at, and you know, in his second year, it's a rebuilding process, and you know, I think they made a huge jump this year, and I would expect them to make another jump next year.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, he's got, what, about 5 seniors that he's going to have to replace, which is not something he had to worry about going into this season.
Right, and those 5 seniors, all of them were starters. All of them started for 4 years. You know, we obviously have talked all year long about Mariana Sanchez in goal. That's going to be a huge blow now that she's graduated, and so he's going to have to find a goalkeeper to, you know, to fill those shoes, and that's not easy. You know, when she played every single minute, virtually every single minute of every game, for somebody now to step in and have to fill those shoes is going to be tough.
Right, yeah, no way you could expect a freshman to come in and perform like Mariana has the last 3-4 years, but so she was special. She'll be missed, but Eric, a great recruiter, and he'll find someone.
Yeah, and when you've got a person like Amy Sibic to lead your offense, Amy had 14 goals this year, and is just 3 away from the being number 6 all time in scoring in Cardinal history. So obviously he's got some people that are coming back that can play. Caitlin Cole had a great sophomore year. She was our leading person in assists. So he's got some people in some good places. Now it's just a matter of filling in for those 5 seniors who did a lot on the field and off the field to really lead this team.
Men's soccer, Donnie, an uncharacteristic performance in their last game. All year they have been in all of their contests, but the last one against St. Thomas, not so much so, as they lose 7-0.
Yeah, it's one of those where they've made all these baby steps forward all year long, and obviously a loss like that is certainly a step backwards. But I think it's a grind. The season had been a grind, and you know, it's a lot of work, and St. Thomas is a very good team. And you know, you talk about momentum. We talked about it in volleyball, and really talking to Coach Dembeck, that's what happened. You know, St. Olaf got on, or St. Thomas got on a little bit of a roll. They got a couple goals early, and you know, that obviously deflated St. Mary's playing at St. Thomas, and you know, I'm sure that just energized the Tommies, and in that second half, St. Thomas rattled off 4 straight goals, and it just was one of those things. The snowball started, and they just couldn't stop it, and by the time it got done rolling, it had all the St. Mary's bundled up inside of it.
Well, and St. Thomas nationally ranked, of course. A disappointing end of the career for senior John Safransky, who's been an all-conference performer at goaltender, but just not the way he wanted to end his college career, I'm sure.
Yeah, it really is a little bit disappointing. But even if you take that, it's interesting. You take that game, and it was 7-0, and you still look back in the fact that John had a 1.77 goals against average. I mean, that's just incredible. And you know, I've watched him for 4 years now, and the guy is absolutely incredible. He makes more highlight reel saves than any keeper that I've ever seen, and you know, just a fierce competitor on the field, and a great guy off the field, and yeah, it's a disappointing way for him to end his collegiate career. But you know, like the other seniors on that team, again, it was their leadership that got them to where they needed to be. They're the ones that, you know, helped keep that team together and keep battling, and hopefully that when they leave, you know, what they've taught those younger players will be what the team carries on from here on. And you know, they graduate 4 guys which means they've got 7 starters back. Just like the women, they're going to have to find a new goalkeeper because John was the guy now for the last 4 years. So hopefully Chris will be able to do that and go out and recruit and find a good keeper. But they've got a good nucleus there returning, and hopefully that that nucleus will be able to pick things up and forget that last game and really just get ready for a new season.
Well, and speaking of a new season, men's hockey is off to a new season. You got a chance to see most of the games in the MIAC Men's Hockey Showcase last weekend up in the cities. Had to be fun to see the season start off that way. The Cardinals begin 0-2, a pretty good opening night game, and then slipped back a little bit on Saturday night's performance.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you talk to Coach Moore about the 2 games, it was definitely night and day. They played a very good game when they opened up on Friday night against St. Thomas. They fell behind 3-0 in the first period of that game, including a goal scored with 1 second left in the period, which obviously is always something that coaches strive not to have happen. But yet came back, scored 2 straight goals in the second period to get it back to 3-2, and did end up losing 4-2. And I know Coach Moore was extremely happy with the way they played in that game. Problem was they couldn't repeat that on Saturday when they took on St. John's and they lost 4-0. I think one of the things as we looked at that tournament, one of the problems that St. Mary's had is they played at 5 o'clock on Friday night, turned around and had to play at 2 o'clock on Saturday. St. John's did not play on Friday, so Saturday's game was their first game. So we've got a tired team, maybe even a little bit banged up, a very physical game on Friday night. Not even 24 hours later, we have to play again. Right. St. John's just opening up. Obviously, Coach Moore would never use that as an excuse. Mm-hmm. That's my excuse. But I think it was just one of those things that, they dug back after Friday, and when you're down 3-0 again, it's really tough to do 2 days in a row to be digging yourselves out of holes like that. And that's the one thing that Coach Moore needs to change is they can't continually be battling coming from behind. They need to get out front.
Yeah, and they're back at it again this weekend, right?
Yes, they are. They go to Stout on Friday, and then they've got a non-conference game against St. Olaf on Saturday in Northfield. So it'll be a chance for them to get to see their third MIAC team in a non-conference situation, which is going to benefit them as they get into the conference season. And I know that St. Olaf, it's a tough place to play over there in Northfield, and they'll be ready. And it's always fun to play these teams. The showcase was it's a great concept and it was a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of good teams, and I was pretty impressed with some teams that you wouldn't normally think were going to be as good as they were. And so I think it's a good eye opener for all of the conference schools. Yeah. So.
Well, Donnie, you've been helping me try to understand hockey over the years, and I've gotten a little bit better, but you have to help me understand Terry Manner's thinking here, the women's head hockey coach. He was a little bit more pleased with a 4-0 loss than he was a 5-4 loss on opening night. They were at Lake Forest last weekend, lost 5-4 and 4-0, but a little bit happier with Saturday's performance.
I think Saturday was just more of an overall better performance on their part. Obviously, it is hard to figure out when you lose 5-4 and you lose 4-0, and the 4-0 is a better one. But yeah. I think part of it was more disappointing the way that they lost on Friday. They are the ones that jumped out to the 3-0 lead. They led 4-3 after 2 periods, and then they still lose 5-4. I think it was more of a roller coaster on Friday night in that they weren't able to hold the lead that they had. They didn't continue to play as well in the second and third periods. And on Saturday, I think it was just more of a consistent play on their part, and they got beat by a team that played better on that night. And so I think that's Terry's thinking. I certainly am not going to get into Terry's head and try and figure that out. But I know that he just felt that they played better hockey on Saturday and just didn't get the result that they wanted.
All right. Well, we'll get into Terry's head later on in the year when we have him as a guest. Stay tuned, though, to the Cardinals Nest. Coming up, we're going to talk about The Crucible, which is the second student theater production of the year at St. Mary's. We'll have Larry Gorrell, the director, and Tom Connery, a performer, in next here on the Cardinals Nest on HBC.
These days, everyone's talking about saving the environment.
And at HBC, we're doing the little things that you can do that really make a difference.
Like recycling our bottles and cans.
Or shutting down our computers at night to help save electricity.
Or setting out bins for our excess paper waste.
And even something as simple as turning off the lights.
At HBC, being green is just another way we're helping to build a better community.
For more tips on having a green lifestyle, visit our website, my.hbci.com/green.
And welcome back to the Cardinals Nest here on HBC Channel 25. Dean Beckman, Donny Nadeau, and we are joined now by Larry Gorrell and Tom Connery. Larry is the director for The Crucible, which is the second student theater production to be held on the St. Mary's University campus. It's coming up next weekend, and Tom is the lead performer for The Crucible. So we'll talk to Tom and Larry in a little bit here. But Larry, let's start off with you because you've been at St. Mary's a long time. You were the former dean for the School of the Arts starting in 1990. And so tell us about your career path a little bit, how you got into theater and got into directing theater now for this show, The Crucible.
Well, I've been in theater pretty much all my career. Lived in New York for a long time. Was in tech and design and directing mostly, but somehow took a circuitous path, which I'm glad I did, into arts administration. And I took my Master of Fine Arts in Arts Administration while living in New York, and that ultimately led to my job in 1990 at St. Mary's. The Performance Center was 3 years old at the time, and Dr. Flanagan, Mike Flanagan, was visiting with me in New York and said, you know, we discovered we have this great, which still is, wonderful complex, but we really need somebody who knows what they're doing to organize it, to set goals, to hire staff, to create the page series. So that's what I was hired to do initially, and to start a Master of Arts in Arts Administration on our Minneapolis campus. So I did that for 17 years. 17 years, yeah.
Great.
So theaters, or the arts in general, I've just, for the last 40 years, I've been involved in one way or another.
Right. And now at St. Mary's, you're doing some work up on the Twin Cities.
Yes, I'm a program coordinator for two programs, Master of Arts in Lasallian Leadership and Master of Arts in Lasallian Studies, while still working in the Arts Administration program, which is now called Arts and Cultural Management, just to kind of keep up with the times. But that program is highly respected. Now it's one of the older programs in the country, actually. And I love doing them both. And then, of course, I'm doing a little teaching on this campus right now, besides directing the play.
Right. Yeah, I noticed you were called a guest director, but hardly a guest at all, because you're there a lot of the time.
I think they did that. They had to indicate somehow that I wasn't full-time, so I became a guest. I wish they would treat me more like one.
And Tom, how about you? How about a little history of you know, how you got into theater, how you got to St. Mary's, what drew you to St. Mary's, and what you're planning to do once you leave St. Mary's?
What I'm planning to do. Let's see, how did I get into theater? I didn't start doing theater until I was around 12, 13-ish. That's when I did my first musical with the community theater group in my area. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the camaraderie that I had with the people there. It's kind of like a family outside my family. So, and then I just kept going at it, and then when it came time to choosing colleges, I was like looking around. I wanted to go to a small school that had a good arts program, and then they're like, St. Mary's, you get to go to London your junior year. So I was like, oh,
it's a benefit.
That sounds good. I'll do that. So, and plus it's such a beautiful campus. That's
right.
You know, fell in love with it.
What's your hometown and what's your major at St. Mary's?
I'm originally from the Chicago suburbs, and then I've lived in like near Madison, Wisconsin for the last 3 years or so. And then I'm a double major actually in theater and English literature.
Okay. Well, and you're playing the role of John Proctor in The Crucible. We'll get to that in a minute, but Larry, let's talk about The Crucible play itself. This was a play written in 1953, yet its setting is the late 1600s, right? And it has a witchcraft theme to it with a much deeper message, though. So tell us a little bit about the play, The Crucible.
Yeah, well, written by Arthur Miller, like the preeminent playwright of the 20th century. And when he wrote it in 1903, exactly what you said, he decided to write this play about witchcraft trials, all based on fact. Even the characters' names are based on fact that happened in 1691 in Salem, Massachusetts. The interesting thing, what he was writing about really, The Crucible is about hysteria and how mass hysteria can lead to, in The Crucible's death, people getting killed, you know, people getting hanged. he was living through the period we all know called McCarthyism in this country, which was all based on hysteria and people, luckily not getting killed, but people losing their jobs, people being blacklisted, mostly in the performing arts industry or the entertainment industry, but it went way beyond that to politicians and everything. So rather than write a play at that very time while it was happening about the hysteria that was generated by McCarthy and his Committee on Un-American Activities, he went to another period in history that parallels it in almost, it's freaky how much it parallels it. So that's what how he came to write The Crucible. Miller didn't usually write historical plays. I mean, Death of a Salesman, you know, On the Waterfront, a movie, all sorts of things that were mostly contemporary. So that's where the parallel exists, and that's the lessons learned about McCarthyism. We find those exact same lessons learned in The Crucible.
Okay. Tom, your role as John Proctor, tell us about this character and how do you try to get into character for this role?
John Proctor is a farmer in Salem, and his wife is accused of witchcraft, and he's basically he sees through the hypocrisy of the society and the theocracy, and he's trying to bring the truth to light. But what happens in the play is that everything he tries, like his whole world, is kind of crashes down around him, and he can't. He continually is trying to be the honest, good man, but he's still conflicted because he feels that he's really not, but he wants to be that guy.
Okay.
So,
how do you feel about playing this role?
When I first, it's a huge part. It's huge. It's kind of a dream role. I was thinking, it's like, man, when this is over, I'm gonna be like, play John Proctor, life goal achieved. So, but yeah, I mean. It's a big responsibility, and I'm taking it really seriously, I think, and that's I really want to do it justice and to make sure that everything Miller was trying to say through the character, because he was trying to say so much in this play about McCarthyism and about just the truth, that it's a big responsibility, and I really want to get the full life of the character out onto the stage.
Interesting cast that you have, not only St. Mary's students, but we were talking off camera that you've got 5 students in this play from Rose Bruford College in just outside of London. Talk a little bit about how you got some Londoners over here to take part in this.
Let me say, first of all, thankfully they have great American accents when they're on stage.
In the last play, our American students needed to have English accents.
Exactly.
So turnabout is fair play.
So it's great having them. This started about our relationship with Rose Bruford started. I'm guessing several, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago while I was still dean, and we got to know this one professor there, Stephen Dykes, whose wife incidentally is from St. Paul. So that was kind of the connection, and we got to know them to the point where, this is while I was still dean, we hired one of their professors to teach our acting class over there, acting a British approach, and he's become a good friend of the university. In fact, he was just here visiting this weekend to meet up with his students. After a while, we just started talking more and more. Our students don't go to Rose Bruford, but they take advantage of their teaching. The Brits have a junior a year abroad type, that's what we would call it, program to get a degree in American theater, American studies. So we kept on talking, and then I left, and then thank gosh Michael Sharon was there, who kept on talking with Gary and convinced them that we were the place, an alternative perhaps to another school they're going to also, but we were the place to get a quality, good arts or theater education and an American cultural education. That's like, we just spent a weekend up in the Twin Cities and went to the Guthrie and everything else. And then I suggested they go to the Mall of America, to Walker Arts Center, but I think they went to the Mall of America, so they know more about American culture than we do. Anyway, so they're here for a whole year. There are 8 of them? 8 of them, I think.
Seven or 8.
Is that what it is?
Like that.
And they're just phenomenal students, and they're the nicest kids in the world, and they fit in well, dare I say, with our kids, who are also phenomenal, and some of the nicest kids. I mean that with this cast. Wow. So they're here, and of the 8 of them, or whatever, there's 5 in this show. I think there's 7, I'm sorry, 5 in this show, and then 2 others have been in other shows that we've done. So they're getting a good sampling of how theater is taught, how it's approached in this country. And one of the reasons Judy Myers, the chairperson of our theater department, and Gary and the rest of the department picked this show, knowing that the Brits were coming, and if they're studying American theater, this would be a prime example of what American theater is about. And then we could do the larger cast because we would know that have this influx. There's 21 people in the cast, which is huge. Yeah. Huge for a non-musical show.
Well, what are the challenges for you as the director of this play? Is it the size of the cast, or maybe some other things?
Ask Tom. Yes, we have a brilliant set by Kit Mayer, who does most of our sets, and it is really, you folks come, you'll love it. It's, but the size of it, I first looked at it and I went, oh my gosh, there's one scene, the jury scene, that has 18 people at once on stage. Well, what I ended up discovering through the process was it was easier to stage the larger scenes than the smaller ones with 2 or 3 people. It was like the set seemed to expand, at least in my mind, for the bigger scenes and then contract a little for the smaller ones. So that was one challenge. You know, how do we handle that many people on stage at the same time, keeping them in character? There's some of folks that are playing older people. How do they walk? What is their character? Because there are so many, I mean, not only actors, but so many characters in this show. Yeah. From the morally upright with some problems like John Proctor to, you know, any number of people. The teenage girls who get this whole thing going because of their hysteria, because of out in the woods one night dancing with Tituba, the African-American, she's an islander, servant to one of the leads, and they all went out in the woods. We don't see that scene, but we hear about it right away. So these girls, boy, you're just wondering, are they really manipulative? You know, are they really, when they go into a little bit of their hysteria, are they acting, or is it true, or is it the situation that's causing it? And the results of that are, in the end, ultimately, you know, people are hanged. I mean, and that's a story everybody knows. I'm not going to say who was hanged or anything. Well, no, because that's interesting. Yeah. The audience will really be surprised, the outcome.
Okay. Well, so this is The Crucible, November 12th through the 14th. So it's starting next Thursday, next weekend, November 12th through the 14th, 7:30 p.m. And then also November 15th at 3 p.m.
Exactly.
Larry, Tom, thanks for being on the Cardinals Nest.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You bet. All right,
whoever thought I'd be working with Donny?
He loves it. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on the Cardinals Nest right after this on HBC.
Do you ever feel like you've got too much paper in your life? Well, HBC understands, and that's why, as part of our Going Green program, we're offering electronic bill paying to all our customers. Instead of receiving your bill in the mail, you can now view your statement on our my.hbci website and make your payment from the convenience of your computer. Or you can still stop by at HBC and pay in person. After all, we always like to see you. Online bill paying at HBC. It's fast, easy, and now paper-free.
A couple of events we want to make sure you know about. You can catch dinner and a show with the Oldie Moldy All-Stars on Saturday, November 21st at Visions Event Center. You can rock along to your favorite 50s, 60s, and 70s tunes and enjoy a great meal. And so you can call signatures for reservations 454-3767. And the second annual Iron Chef competition held at the Toner Center Dining Hall this weekend at 6:30 p.m. Proceeds there will benefit a student from Gaza to attend Bethlehem University. So those are a couple of the many events coming up shortly at St. Mary's. That's going to do it for the Cardinals Nest here on HBC. Thanks for watching.